from the Radio What Studios, and this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Let me say that one more time. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event. I like to party with the people. Make your next thing a big one. Video dance parties, karaoke jams. I'll be as high energy or as low key as you want. I become an extension of you at your event. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, August 13th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Biden, Harris make their first joint campaign appearance. Presumptive Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden on Wednesday made his first public appearance with Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat California, since picking her as his running mate. Biden embraced the significance of his selection of the first black woman to appear on a major party presidential ticket and said that Harris, who has served as a prosecutor and California's attorney general, has the deep experience needed to defeat President Trump and help lead the nation through the coronavirus pandemic, an economic crisis, and a racial reckoning. Quote, Kamala knows how to govern, end quote, Biden said in his hometown, Wilmington, Delaware. Quote, she's ready to do this job on day one, end quote. Harris framed the election as a, quote, moment of real consequence for America, end quote, saying that the country is, quote, crying out for leadership, end quote. This is according to the Associated Press and the New York Times. Number 2, U.S. reports nearly 1,500 COVID-19 deaths, most since mid-May. The United States on Wednesday reported nearly 1,500 new coronavirus deaths, the highest single-day death toll since mid-May, according to the Washington Post. The 7-day average has exceeded 1,000 for 17 straight days. Georgia reported 105 deaths, its second straight triple-digit day, and North Carolina tied its highest daily death toll of 45. Texas reported 324 additional COVID-19 deaths. For the first time in months, however, the daily increase in U.S. coronavirus cases decreased to 52,875 over the last 7 days compared to 65,285 on July 28. U.S. officials noted, quote, signs of progress, end quote, in the southern states where cases spiked this summer. But testing shortages in key states and problems with COVID-19 data called into question whether the infections are declining or were missed, epidemiologists say. This is according to the Washington Post and CNBC. Number 3, Pompeo warns Russia of enormous price if bounty report true. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Wednesday that he had warned his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, that Moscow would pay, quote, an enormous price, end quote, if it offered militant bounties to kill American and other Western soldiers in Afghanistan. The New York Times reported in June that Russian military intelligence had offered such bounties to Taliban-linked fighters. President Trump said he had not been told about the matter before the news report and that he doubted it was accurate. Several U.S. and European sources confirmed the report of the payments. Pompeo declined in a Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty interview to say whether he believed the intelligence credible, but he had warned Lavrov of swift consequences if it's true. Quote, I know our military has talked to their senior leaders as well. We won't tolerate, end quote, Pompeo said. This is according to Reuters. Number 4, Mnuchin, Pelosi trade blame for stalled COVID-19 relief talks. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin unsuccessfully reached out to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, on Wednesday to restart stalled negotiations on a new coronavirus relief package. Pelosi said Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat New York, accused the Trump administration of, quote, refusing to budge, end quote, even though Democrats agreed to shave $1 trillion from the $3 trillion House approved package, essentially meeting in the middle of the gap between the House plan and the $1 trillion Senate Republican proposal. Mnuchin disputed that account, saying Pelosi, quote, made clear she was unwilling to meet to continue negotiations unless we agreed in advance to her proposal, costing at least $2 trillion, end quote. He said the White House is ready to move forward with funding for schools, food, hospitals, and other priorities. This is according to the Washington Post and Reuters. Number 5, Biden campaign donations surge after Harris named as running mate. Former Vice President Joe Biden campaign raised $26 million in the 24 hours after the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee named Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat California, as his running mate. The surge included contributions from 150,000 first-time donors in a sign that Harris, the first woman of color on a major party presidential ticket, can build enthusiasm for the campaign. The money really came flooding in during the first hour after he broke the news. Those were the best 60 minutes of fundraising his campaign has had so far, Politico reported. Biden shared the fundraising totals during a virtual event on Wednesday evening, saying, quote, it's really palpable, the excitement, end quote. Prior to joining the ticket, Harris brought in more than $5 billion for the Biden campaign by headlining online fundraisers. This is according to Politico. Number 6, U.S. commander concerned over ISIS regrouping in Syria. General Frank McKenzie, the top U.S. commander for the Middle East, shared a stark warning on Wednesday about a resurgence of the Islamic State in western Syria. McKenzie participated in a virtual United States Institute of Peace forum and said that in parts of western Syria, quote, conditions are as bad or worse, end quote, than they were prior to the terror group's rise in 2014. And, quote, we should all be concerned about that, end quote. The region is controlled by the Syrian government, and insurgents there have a degree of freedom to move around. There is barely a U.S. presence in western Syria, McKenzie said, and the United States does not believe the regime will do anything to try to push back against the militants. This is according to the Associated Press. Number 7, Watchdog. U.S. ambassador to Britain made inappropriate remarks. The State Department Inspector General's office released a report on Wednesday requesting further review of evidence that during his tenure, U.S. ambassador to Britain, Woody Johnson, had made intensive and inappropriate comments about race, religion, and sex. Quote, offensive or derogatory comments based on an individual's race, color, sex, or religion can create an offensive working environment and could potentially rise to a violation of EEO, employment opportunity laws, end quote, the Inspector General's office said in the report. The State Department's Bureau of European and Eurasian Affairs disagreed with the recommendation for further review, saying that a formal assessment was not required. Instead, it said all staff, including the chief of mission, should receive training to, quote, heighten awareness on these important issues, end quote, the report said. This is according to Reuters. Number 8, Air Force helicopter hit with gunshot in Virginia makes emergency landing. A U.S. Air Force helicopter had to make an emergency landing after someone fired a shot at the aircraft, injuring one of its 2 pilots, an Air Force official said Wednesday. The incident occurred Monday near Manassas, Virginia. The helicopter was flying at an altitude of 1,000 feet on a training mission. it landed safely at Manassas Regional Airport, west of Washington, D.C. The FBI and the Air Force are conducting a joint investigation. The UH-1N Huey helicopter pilots can be heard on air traffic control radio reporting, quote, a medical emergency, end quote. And after initially scrapping plans to land at the Manassas airport, they said they were heading, quote, direct to Manassas, end quote. This is according to CNN. Number 9, Hong Kong media tycoon released on bail, urges patience in democracy fight. Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai, the highest profile person arrested so far under China's new national security law, said on Thursday, a day after his release on bail, that democracy advocates should brace for a, quote, long-term fight, end quote, in the Chinese-ruled former British colony. Police raided the headquarters of Lai's Apple Daily tabloid on Monday. Officers arrested Lai, a supporter of the financial hub's democracy movement, on suspicion of collusion with foreign forces. Beijing sees Lai as a, quote, traitor, end quote. Lai on Thursday thanked supporters during a hashtag live chat with Jimmy video appearance on Twitter. Quote, the oxygen is getting thin and we are all choking, end quote, he said. Quote, but when we're choking, we're still taking care of each other and keep resisting and keep fighting for our rule of law and freedom, end quote. This is according to Reuters. Number 10, Summer Redstone dies at 97. Billionaire media mogul Sumner Redstone died Tuesday. His family's holding company, National Amusements, announced in a statement Wednesday. He was 97. Redstone built a media empire from National Amusements, a chain of drive-in theaters, over several decades. He accrued holdings that included CBS, Paramount Pictures, Simon & Schuster, Blockbuster, and Viacom. At their peak, the New York Times reports the businesses he controlled were worth more than $80 billion. The Wall Street Journal described Redstone as a, quote, mercurial, end quote, figure who was known for feuding both with his top executives and his family members, earning him the nickname, quote, Grumpy, end quote, from his own grandchildren. Barry Reardon, who oversaw distribution for the rival Warner Brothers studio, said in 1994 that being the, quote, relentless, end quote, Redstone's competitor, quote, is a fate worse than death, end quote. This is according to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. That's 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, August 13th, 2020. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for putting up with all my stumbling. I'm learning stuff. And, if you'd like to learn along with me, find me. These live videos, usually around this time, somewhere around the 7 o'clock area. I put them out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Twitch.tv/KeysDAN, YouTube, youtube.com/user/KeysDAN, or just look up radiowhat.com on YouTube. I'm sure you'll find it. Also, this week's shows, I almost forgot. I'll be at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas on Friday nights for the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. So if you've been working hard all week, you spend some time with your friends at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, radiowhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. What makes you smarter? Peace. I'm out of here.